Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. We are in Riverside, Illinois at Sarah VenHorst's new place.
We are here.
Tell us about this. What do you got going on here?
So it's called CC Wellness Solutions, which is my company, but the space itself, we're kind of calling a healing space. So the idea behind the space is that I will be providing mental health therapy. So I have an LCPC, which is Licensed Clinical Professional Counselor, and I do individual therapy. I initially started by just saying adolescents and adult women, but I've actually taken on as young as 11-year-olds and as old as 62. So I'm kind of still feeling out who my clientele are going to be, but I'm ready to roll with anything. And then I have actually two offices back there. So one of them is currently a play therapy room, but it can be converted. So I have two other people interested in using that space. One does Reiki, no-touch massage healing. That she works with chakras.
Right.
And the other one is a life coach. And this bigger space out in front, eventually I would like to use this space for groups of all types. So groups for my own clients that I see, I currently have enough to run one group. And then eventually I'd like to do some yoga teacher training myself, because there's an advanced certification for, it's called yoga therapy. And so you can do small groups of yoga, but through the vein of a therapeutic approach. So things like OCD, ADHD, anxiety, that kind of thing. So that's kind of a long-term goal for me in this space.
And so you are pretty much brand new here. How long have you been here?
So I got the space in February, but it took way longer than I wanted to get it ready. We had to actually build the offices. There was nothing there. It was just kind of a changing area for the dressmaker that was here before me. So that process was much longer than I anticipated or wanted, and much more expensive than I anticipated or wanted. But I think that's kind of par for the course when you're starting a new company.
So what's interesting about you is you are still a counselor in high school.
Yes.
Right? We kind of came into Oak Park at the same time.
Same year, yeah.
And now you're transferring into this. Tell us about that journey a little bit, right?
It's been a journey.
Yeah, because I think it's so interesting that you work with students and now you're actually going out into the public. You know, how does that look to you? What was your vision there?
Yeah, so I initially started out teaching, actually. I was an English teacher in the city. And within my first year of teaching, they wanted so much more from me than English. And I knew that I wanted to be a counselor, so I immediately went back to school full time and got my first counseling job at Rich South High School in Richton Park. Was there for a year, and then I got my job at Oak Park, and I've been there for 14 years now. And really, you know, the whole time I've been in this profession in a school, my favorite part is the helping piece. So there's a whole bunch that goes into my job as the school counselor. There's a lot of clerical work, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of interaction with administration, teachers, parents, presentations, college admissions. So there's a whole bunch of components that go into that job. But my passion is the one-on-one helping, and it always has been. And it's actually always been my strength. So anytime I had a review or anything like that, that was always the strength. And I've actually had a couple parents and students ask me, you know, do you do therapy outside of school over the years? And so I started thinking, you know, I really should just be focusing, well, like, why am I not focusing on the one thing I love? And so I did have to go back. I had to take one class and then 2 licensing tests. So this has been about a 4-year process, getting me to where I am now.
Talk about patience,
huh? And a lot of planning and a lot of obsessing. And really, you know, what ended up happening was I kind of got sick of hearing myself talk about it and just decided to do it.
Fantastic.
So that's how it happened.
How many times have you told students, like, you should go for what you want, and then finally you started listening to yourself?
Every day. And, you know, that's probably one of the curses of being a counselor of any kind. You're very good at telling other people what to do, but maybe not so good at listening to yourself. And so I really did, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot, I had to have a lot of support from people around me, including my husband and my family, and even my students, you know, everybody was really encouraging, and they kept saying, just do it, you know, just jump in and do it. And getting the license last spring at least gave me, I was like, okay, that was a really hard test, first of all. I mean, it's a clinical test, and I really didn't think I could pass it, to be honest. I was a horrible test taker, always was. and was told that many people fail on the first try. So I studied for probably 6 months, if not longer, and I passed it on the first try. So that was really reassuring to me that I know my stuff. And that gave me kind of a boost of confidence. And then at the start of the school year, my boss decided that it was time for her to move on. And I thought, you know what, this is a sign. You know, this is it. And I took the leap. So I'm on a leave of absence. So I haven't quit Oak Park. I'm giving myself, I can take up to 2 years to figure out if this is what I want. So far, it's been going very well. And I'm really enjoying it. I love being my own boss. There's that.
Well, I can tell you, I know a couple of our previous guests are some of your former students.
Yes.
So
we know, quite a few, actually.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that's great. So let's go back then into maybe your educational path and how you found did you always know you wanted to be a teacher or a counselor?
So yeah, when I was a little girl, I used to set up a classroom with my stuffed animals and like fake write on the board. So I think I always knew I wanted to be in education in some way. My parents did not have formal education. So my dad, they went to Chicago Vocational High School, and my dad went down the carpentry path. So he's in construction and has worked his way up from the age of, I think, 16 is when he started. My mom went the secretarial route, partly because her counselor in school said to her, you know, you should really just pick a path. You know, you're smart enough to go to college, but you should just pick a path. That's what women do. Wow. And so my mom is from Mexico. She comes from a family that didn't grow up here. She, you know, she thought, well, that's what I should do then. So that's what they did. And so growing up, I think I was always encouraged to take that next step. And even though my parents, you know, my mom did eventually go back and she got an associate's degree when I was maybe 10 in interior design. But without that kind of formal base of, you know, everybody we know went to college, we didn't really know what we were doing. So my older sister and I kind of forged that path, at least for our small family. And my sister went off to University of Illinois, and I thought, well, I always do what she does, so I'm going to go out to University of Illinois. So that's
not easy to get in there.
No, I did get in on my own. I got in, you know, they wouldn't take me today, but back then they took me. And so that's where it started for me. And I did go directly, you know, I knew I wanted to teach high school. English was something I always loved. I'm also a musician. I don't know if you knew that about me. I played the violin. And so I was a little bit torn between teaching music and English. And actually thought for a little bit I would do both. And then I found out I'd have to stay for 2 more years and thought, that's not going to happen. I'm already halfway done. And then graduated and went into teaching right away. So I was 22 teaching in an inner city school. I'm pretty sure my friends were calling me, you know, they were like, okay, Dangerous Minds, like, what do you think you're doing? And I loved every second of it. I loved the kids. I loved just being in the room with them and hearing their stories. You know, we came from such different backgrounds. And so every day was kind of a new experience where they were like, let me touch your hair. And I was like, well, only if I can touch your hair, you know? And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was really hard to be that young and walk into a situation that I really didn't anticipate everything that would be expected of me. I cried a lot. But by the end of that year, I really felt like Superwoman. I thought, you know what, everybody should really have an experience like this, because it's not only about yourself, it's about learning about the people around you who come from different backgrounds and different stories and, you know, their lives. And to me, it was so impactful that it was enough to make me leave teaching and go back to school full time. So I went, well, I almost moved to Boston actually at that time, and for personal reasons I did not. And so I ended up staying in Chicago and went to Loyola.
Another good school.
Yes, another good school.
She's pretty smart. Like I couldn't get in those schools then. So.
I like to think I'm smart. They thought awesome. I was smart enough to let me in.
Passing test on the first round.
I did.
Fantastic.
Yes. And so when I went to Loyola, I had to put myself through school. So I worked 3 jobs while I was in school full time. So I was a nanny. I worked at Loyola's disabilities office as a disabilities coordinator, and I was also the assistant director at the Glencoe Youth Center up in Glencoe.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I look back now and think like, wow, that was exhausting. I don't really
Superwoman,
remember. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But like I said, I kind of felt like Superwoman
Right.
coming out of my teaching experience. It really didn't seem insurmountable to me. And I've been working since I was 14.
Yeah.
So, you know, work ethic, I get that from my dad. He's an extremely hard worker. I started working at 14 and haven't stopped.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also what keeps me driven to keep moving forward in my career and in my personal life and, you know, just being a human.
Yeah.
And I also think that's why I do what I do with other people, because I want to instill that in other people.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that is not something that's innate in everybody. It is in some people. And in other worlds, they don't have a role model for something like that. And so for me, that's always been my goal with what I do in the schools and certainly with what I'm doing now.
Right, right. That's work ethic, smarts. Wow. I mean, like, and now you're running your own. I see nothing but success for you. I'm like, okay, all right. So you heard it here. This is going to go. Well, let's take a look then at traditional education systems. And you know, you have seen so much more than me just as a classroom teacher. You see all facets pretty much of a school. And I know that being a counselor is no easy task in a high school. I think there's a lot of stereotypes and people think things.
Like we sit in our offices drinking coffee.
And take 3-hour lunches, those types.
We do drink coffee, I'm not going to lie, but we're usually
I
doing
drink coffee
things.
when I go into those meetings because they're so intense. But so what would you do if you had the power to change something in a school system? Let's focus on high school because that's where we're kind of out of. But how would you change that?
I mean, I think one of the things that I fought for the whole time I worked at Oak Park was giving opportunity to students of all varieties and all skill levels. And in Oak Park, as you know, the mentality has been for a very long time that everybody's going to college. And the reality is that's just not realistic for anyone. It's not realistic for our students at Oak Park, and it's not realistic for the world. And so one of the things that I was very passionate about when I worked there was creating, you know, viable options for all students that are actually attainable as soon as they graduate. Not we're going to drag you to the finish line to graduation and then hope you do okay. A lot of schools will take students of all varieties. That doesn't mean it's the right fit for them.
Right.
And that's what I have struggled with for a long time there. One of the things I'm very proud of, and I always said if I accomplished this at Oak Park, I could leave and feel good about what I've done. I started the cosmetology program, and it was something that I knew we needed the day I walked in the doors there 14 years ago, and it took me 10 plus years to get people on board. And so and a lot of it's just political.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the students. I started a cosmetology club to prove that there was a need, and I had 50 students show up to the first meeting.
Wow.
And then the second year I had 35, and I thought, well, what more proof do you need than that?
Right.
You know, then they found out all I could do was like show them YouTube videos and
Yeah.
like, I like hair and makeup, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And so they were very disappointed. And I'm very happy to say that we had our first group go through this last school year, and we have more students enrolled next year. And I feel like if nothing else, if I never end up back at Oak Park, that's kind of my legacy. And and it really speaks to what I believe, which is everybody deserves a spot somewhere, and everybody has the opportunity somewhere. It's finding, I mean, that's like the rule of career counseling.
Right.
It's your interests, your skills, and your abilities. And when those three things come together, it's like magic.
Exactly.
And so what you really need to do is talk about abilities realistically and talk about interest realistically, and then you put all that into play and set the wheels in motion. And for me, that's true of every educational institution. I think, you know, my own reference has been Oak Park just because I've been there for so long.
Right.
But I have been in other schools, and I think it's a struggle across the board. I think some schools do a better job than others.
Yeah.
I think some communities value what it means to go a vocational track or to go into the military or to just go out into the workforce, or to go into an apprenticeship or a trade. All of those things are out there, and they're very stable, and they're wonderful positions, and I think sometimes they get overlooked because there's this idea that everyone has to have some form of formal education. And I don't disagree with a formal education. I think obviously I have master's degree, and I can plan on continuing my own.
Do you think a lot of that comes from the way that we rank schools?
Yes. And I think
is that changing? I mean, you're kind of in that realm.
Yeah, I don't think it's changing. I think there's money behind rankings, and I think a lot of it is political. And it's not to say that those schools that are ranked highly aren't wonderful institutions, but to be very honest, at this point, the amount of money it's costing for students. I mean, I kept saying for years, this is going to burst. This bubble is going to burst. There's no way it's going to continue. And it just has kept going.
Yeah.
And so if they don't do something about that, I don't know how they're going to sustain this anyway. The other piece of it is the competition has gotten so fierce, and I wasn't joking. I don't think U of I would take me now. And it's really kind of trickles down into our student population. And you can see it. I mean, in my office, I see it all the time. And it's scary and it's sad, the amount of pressure that is put on them, and it's real. It's not that they're putting it on themselves, it's that it's actually coming down from the top, and it's a real concern. But then how do you find that middle ground? When everybody's pushing from the top and you're trying to support them, but you see them falling apart.
It seems like there's a lot more competition than when you or I were in
Absolutely.
School. And it just polarizes kids.
It does, and that polarizing kids is like exactly the phrase, because what ends up happening is the haves continue to have, and the have-nots continue to have nothing.
Right.
And it really is sad that we are in the 21st century and we're going that direction.
Right.
I really don't understand it myself. So one of the things that I want to do here in my new space, I've started looking into working with the juvenile justice system. Because first of all, usually those are my favorite students, I'll be real honest with you. But also, if I can work with them at that age, I really think that there is an opportunity to make an impact and change a trajectory of somebody's life at that point.
Right.
And I think schools need to do a better job of that. Looking at who's in front of you, meeting them where they are. I think that's what Chanel said in her interview. But truly, I mean, that's what I believe too, is that you have to work with who's in front of you. You can't force your own plan or someone else's plan on them. And if we could all embrace that, I think that we'd have a happier society. It's not just about, school.
Right, I agree. So where can people find you online?
So I have a website. It's www.ccwellness-solutions.com.
Okay.
And I also have an Instagram page, which is CC Wellness Solutions.
Okay.
And then I haven't quite gotten into the whole world of like Twitter. I mean, I'm on there, but I don't know what I'm doing yet. So that's on the to-do list.
It's a lot of people on Twitter who don't know what they're doing. So,
no, I think I get Dunkin' Donuts stuff all the time.
But, there we go.
I don't know. But I am also on Psychology Today. So that is kind of a resource for everybody. If you're looking for a therapist in your area, you just type in your zip code. And the ones who are closest to you will pop up. So if you typed in Riverside or even Oak Park or the surrounding areas, I will be found in there.
I think what you're doing is fantastic. You very much are an authentic person who wants to help people. I know that from working with you, but I also, when you build things like this, it's pretty amazing. And in a time like now with what's going on, not only like with some stars that are having emotional difficulties and troubles in students. What you do is so powerful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you're just going to disrupt people for the better.
I'm disrupting in a good way.
Awesome. I love it. Well, guys, take a look. We have all our website stuff up. We will see you next time on Disrupt Education.